Hi there, and thank you for your interest in Imagine Orem and in thinking more about Orem's Frontrunner Station area. These slides were first shared at a public workshop on June 22, 2023. They will provide you with an overview of the project and the station area and are especially helpful to view as you prepare to take the survey that is posted along with this presentation on the website. So let's dive in. So what do you imagine at Orem Station? That's what this project is all about. We'll be imagining together what the station area could be like in the next several years, but also looking all the way out to 2050. What could this key gateway into our city be like for our kids and grandkids? We're all in this together, so residents, students, UVU, our business leaders, and other stakeholders are working on this together. What matters in Orem matters locally and also regionally, because we're regionally connected. For example, more than 30,000 of our residents go to other cities to work each day, and we welcome more than 30,000 workers from other places. Our kids benefit from the largest university in the state right at our doorstep, as does the rest of our region. So it makes sense to think about this area as a potential local and regional jewel. Note too that this area is a part of a current neighborhood plan, and what we learn in this process can be added into that plan. Orem residents benefit from investments at the state level. Utah has invested $1.5 billion in Frontrunner running from Salt Lake City to Provo. Another $1 billion will be spent on improvements enabling more frequent trains. Eventually a train will come every 7 minutes, and also Sunday service. Frontrunner has had more than 48 million riders in the last 15 years. In addition, the state has made huge investments in the expansion of I-15 in our area. In response to these large investments, the state is asking cities with Frontrunner to develop station area plans within a half-mile radius of the station. The idea is to make the most of development potential where it makes sense in those areas, and the great thing is that we are able to figure out as a city how we can help meet shared objectives of our region. These shared goals have been identified. For example, we'd like to increase the availability and affordability of housing in our region. Let's also promote sustainable environmental conditions, enhance access to opportunities like education, food, day-to-day needs, and let's increase transportation choices and connections. And here is our study area outlined in purple. So, what do you imagine? Let's create a vision together. We are known as a family city, even as we have grown and changed to accommodate new needs and new dreams. Imagine Orem 100 years ago. More farmers, probably some horses and buggies yet. We've changed a lot, but families then had many of the same needs and valued many of the same things then as they do now. Time together, a roof over their heads, good jobs, nature, convenient ways to get around, a town with places to enjoy together. How we continue to provide those things even as we grow and change is worth thinking about. This is your project, it's your voice, it's your vision. It's a legacy that we can create now for future generations. We know we're going to grow and change, so why not identify and realize our vision together? And our work together in this process is built on the following premise. First, that the public has a right to choose its future and that public officials help serve that vision. And second, that the public will make good choices if presented with real options, especially options that they help create. So we've committed to a public process for this endeavor. We're all committed to providing research and information to the public. We seek broad public input throughout. We build vision directly from public feedback. We use transparent methods, and we build momentum for implementation. We believe that this process will build trust as we learn to think and work together and identify common ground. And this is the process. We started with a public brainstorming workshop and have a current online survey. We'll meet together 2 more times in large public meetings as we move toward a vision for the area. Finally, we'll work on an implementation plan and plan adoption. Just as we've committed to a public process, this is also a scenarios process. We'll look at a trend scenario in a minute, and that will be contrasted with alternative scenarios created with ideas coming from the public. Each will paint a different picture of what the station area could be like for future generations. Together we'll answer, what kind of place should we create? So what's a trend scenario? Well, it's a picture that represents the business as usual. It relies on current city zoning, projects that are in the pipeline, and recent trend activity, existing plans. It's basically where we're headed if we don't want to change course. So here's a 2050 trend scenario or projection. And you can see here our trend scenario. You can see adding some more commercial, that's in the pink, some apartments in a couple of places in the mauve. UVU is looking at another building in blue, some light industrial in the gray. Coming around to the right side of the map, some single family in yellow. So if we look at that trend scenario, here are some numbers. You can see we have an expected additional population of about 1,300 residents spread among some new single family, mostly multifamily, and just under 500 expected jobs. Note that the trend scenario does not include public parks, destination retail or restaurants, minimal day-to-day services, and minimal medical facilities. And this series of slides coming up is not to suggest what Orem should do. That's up to you. But it's fun to see what the neighbors are up to. Real quickly, here are renderings for the station area at American Fork. You can see the train in the foreground in the large image. It faces a large public green that is surrounded by buildings with main floor restaurants and shops and upper floor offices and homes. It's currently under construction. Vineyard also has big plans to create a large community at their train station. It takes advantage of proximity to the lake and creates a balance of large public spaces surrounded by mixed-use buildings. Note that this is a brownfield site, Old Geneva steel, so this project has required many years of effort just to get the ground ready to build, but they thought big. This one is not in our region. It's in Oregon, but it's worth showing because it was built decades ago. You can see a lively, walkable streetscape, places to live and work, and places to play. The area attracts people from all over to enjoy its public spaces. One more example under construction along our own Frontrunner line. This is a newer trend in station areas in our area, senior communities with easy access to regional amenities and the station area amenities. Finally, this isn't on a train line, but it's a great example of a redevelopment area. Once this area was a disjointed mix of buildings, it's being redeveloped into Mill Creek's city center. City Hall is under construction, and in the foreground is a skating ribbon. And you can see from the pictures on the right that this is already open and benefiting the community. So these are all examples of placemaking, creating quality places in which people want to live, work, play, and learn, hitting what their families need. What kind of place could Orem Station become? Well, that's entirely up to you. Think about what your families need now and in the future. So let's learn a bit more about demographics at the station area currently. The current population is just over 5,000 of our almost 100,000 residents. And it's interesting to see that almost 80% of these residents are millennials or Gen Z. Almost 50% of Gen Z, in contrast to Gen Z being about a third of Orem's population overall. Almost 80% are renters. You can see per capita income is lower than the city overall, and net worth is much lower. People here are mostly people who are just starting out. They walk or take public transit at twice the rate of Orem residents overall. And you can see there are about 125 businesses in the area and about 1,300 employees. Moving on from demographics, let's take a look at transportation. Let's take a quick look at regional systems. I-15 has a planned widening project. Frontrunner is looking at double tracking for 15-minute headways and eventually a train arriving every 7 minutes with electrification. UVX anticipates an extension to Vineyard. Union Pacific will continue to move goods through the area. And then there's the statewide network of multi-use trails that we could connect to in our study area through the planned Lakeview Parkway. These projects are all a part of our Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP, which was recently updated. Comments continuously are taken from the public, and the plan is updated every 4 years. These projects are planned either in the short or long term, depending on priority and available funding. You can see here that Orem's Frontrunner station is the second busiest in Utah County, so it takes cars off of your roads. Again, part of the regional transportation plan, but some projects here that are helpful context for our area. In terms of UVX bus in the study area, there's a planned bridge over I-15 at 800 South and a new stop at the northeast end of UVU. These are just possible projects, maybe occurring after 2040, sometime as yet unfunded. The pedestrian bridge that's currently there, about 1,000 crossings per day. University Parkway has a planned intersection improvements program, and then Geneva Road, there's some planning around roadway widening that's possible maybe post 2040, again an unfunded project. UVX has the second highest boarding and alighting at Orem Frontrunner Station, so it may take cars off the road and off your parking lots. And then when we think about transportation at the station area itself, we see that there is this high level of access to these regional or more local transportation networks, I-15, the train, etc. But those same networks limit access to local land, making it a little bit harder to get around. In terms of parking, maybe there's opportunity for shared or stacked parking in the future. And then we see that there's limited pedestrian and bike connections within the study area. The study area could use better options for walking and biking. Here we see a nice pedestrian experience in one development, but it doesn't connect to the rest of the community. The pedestrian bridge is a key connection for walkers and bikers across I-15 and the train, but at either end the experience for walkers and bikers is tough. Services, sidewalks, bike paths are limited or lacking. Note there's an opportunity in surface parking lots from a transportation perspective, particularly the UVU lot, where there could be opportunity for shared or stacked parking and also to add in sidewalks and pathways. Let's take a look at land use and economy. First, let's take a look at major landowners and uses. You can see here that UVU owns tremendous amounts of land in the study area. UTA owns land along the tracks. UDOT owns land along the road. Union Pacific Railroad owns land. There's the Orem Center Business Park, the LDS Church, some agricultural land, some multifamily residential land, and some single family and townhomes. It's worth noting then that the area is currently 92% developed. You can see vacant and agricultural land that is zoned for other uses in red and green on this map. It's also worth noting that redevelopment can be more difficult than developing on vacant land, but it's often typical for land uses that turn over frequently. If you look at the chart, you can see that housing lasts a long time, but redevelopment happens fairly frequently for other uses. Land that is in retail, warehouse, office, or other uses like parking often turn over a time or two or three in one's lifetime. These are spaces that become likely candidates for redevelopment. So here in our study area, you can see vacant lands that are likely to be developed in orange. In blue crosshatch, you can see land where redevelopment is possible, areas like parking, retail uses, those areas we just talked about. And then you can see vacant land in yellow between the freeway and the tracks, which is less likely to be developed, simply because it's very difficult to access and nearby uses that can be unattractive to most other land uses. Expanding on that map, for example, while parking is a need in the study area, it could be redeveloped and even add in more parking. Here's an example of a parking garage that is wrapped with main floor retail and upper floor condos, a housing type that might be helpful for families just starting out. And here's a quick snapshot of the current market. Industrial demand in Utah County is high, office demand has slowed, retail demand has dropped, housing is very high but expensive. What will things be like in 2050? We don't know for sure, but we can be proactive here if we'd like. Housing will likely continue to be a big need, and it's important to think about needs through the lives of the people we know and love. You may have grown up in a single-family home, moved into a dorm or an apartment for school. Maybe then you got married and lived in an apartment for a time. Once a child was born, maybe you or someone you know lived in a townhome and later bought a single-family home as the family grew. You may know empty nesters who are downsizing or want more convenient access to services. It's important to think about the needs of our families and friends and their future needs as we plan for housing. Also important, if you choose to think about a range of housing or building types, is appropriate transitions. If taller buildings are contemplated, then intermediate buildings should provide a buffer between them and smaller buildings, so places feel comfortable. Some taller buildings in the station area are feasible from a market perspective right now. Right now, the market supports four-story buildings with surface parking lots. With incentives, taller buildings with internal parking is possible, and that can often help create nice streetscapes for people rather than seas of parking. So in summary, some development possibilities in the area. Key intersections are available for potential commercial development. The Orem Center Business Park has potential for expansion. UVU is a regional draw and creates opportunities for housing and commercial uses to support the area. And then the area immediately surrounding Orem Station could allow for redevelopment to bring additional commercial uses. And if we zoom in and look at how land is currently being used right around the station, you can see that over half of it is paved. That's in gray, it's mostly parking. You can see some vacant land in brown, green space in green, apartments in pink, some UVU buildings in salmon. Now that you've learned more about the station area, we'd love to get your feedback. Here's a list of several possible features in the station area. We'd like to know how important they are to you, as well as get your feedback on several other questions. There is a survey available on the website, imagineorem.org, now through July 13. Please take time to let us know what you think. Public feedback will be used to create a range of alternative scenarios for Orem's Frontrunner Station area. You'll have an opportunity to explore and provide feedback on those options this fall. Thanks again for your interest in Orem's Frontrunner Station public visioning process. We appreciate your participation and hope to see you at a workshop soon. Thanks so much.